Hello, everybody. You are watching Out of Order. My name is Anthony Buono.
My name is Ben Mayer.
And today we're going to be talking about how Chinese firms are under attack not just from abroad, but also at home. And it puts them in a very precarious position and how they're able to raise and use their capital. So the United States has recently... Where is this all coming from? Why am I bringing this up now? This isn't so much of a current event as much of a trend, but it really is important when we look at the recent bill passed in the United States that's forcing ByteDance, a Chinese-based technology company, to divest from TikTok, or it would be banned in the country. This wasn't the first time that ByteDance actually faced government scrutiny. Chinese regulators threatened to shut down an app run by ByteDance where people were sharing jokes and silly videos related to the Chinese Communist Party. And ByteDance was getting threatened to be shut down from the Chinese government. Wow. And so the founder of the company pledged to build up the Communist Party's presence at ByteDance and educate its employees to think from the perspectives of the party and the government. So, yeah, the U.S. was totally right to force ByteDance to divest from TikTok.
Okay.
100% in my opinion.
Just because of that?
Yes, this is enough. If a company is, having to toe the line of a party of a government, you can do whatever you want to keep it out of the country.
Really?
Oh, I think it's a huge national security risk.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
100%.
To get the data?
Yes, anything. Anything. I wouldn't even do business with a company that is party controlled like that.
It's not clear to me. You got to explain it to me.
Because the Chinese Communist Party's expressed interest is to undermine U.S. allies by taking over Taiwan, putting pressure against Japan and South Korea.
Yeah.
Their expressed interest is to compete with the United States for global hegemony.
But don't you think you kind of need to be able to explain how they can do so through an app like TikTok?
Well, we've seen a lot of reports that indicate that specific hashtags that blow up on TikTok are not the same type of hashtags that blow up on Instagram or Facebook, specifically related to current events and foreign affairs.
Okay.
Ukraine content is way more popular on Instagram than it is on TikTok.
Okay.
Taiwan-related content is way more popular on Instagram than TikTok. Palestinian content is way more popular on TikTok than it is on Instagram.
Yeah.
And a lot of these... This is not conspiratorial. This is just the truth. There are a lot of the people that organized the Palestinian campus protesters actually are a part of groups that get money from the Chinese Communist Party.
Really?
Yes.
I have not seen that.
I swear to God, you can look it up. I don't have the link on me right now.
Okay.
You can look it up, and I promise you there is an indirect, at least, link between money that comes from abroad communist parties in China into the United States that gets funneled to these campus protesters. But my point is,
we shouldn't allow media companies or media technology or media shows that are run by foreign governments.
Easily. That is an easy line for me to draw.
Okay.
So the point of this is ByteDance was getting hit at from the Chinese Communist Party at home.
Okay.
They then go to the United States with their TikTok app. Now they're getting hit by the United States. So there's an example where the Chinese firm has nowhere to go to be safe right now. So Chinese firms used to act totally subservient to Beijing, and in exchange, they would get the chance to survive and then export their ideas and their internet their products abroad, and then enjoy the private property rights that were guaranteed by those democracies.
Sure.
Because the United States guarantees the right to private property. It protects investors. It does all these things that China doesn't. But then this is an example where the United States is giving the dagger to their enemy. They're giving the Chinese Communist Party the tools to damage themselves.
Just because of private property in the U.S.?
Well, because what I'm saying is China is able to utilize the private property rights in the United States to have their party-controlled companies operate in the U.S. without national security type interventions.
Okay.
Right?
I think I get what you're saying. I mean, but do private property rights is this connected to the ByteDance TikTok issue, or
yes.
Can you draw that line for me?
Oh yeah, the private property rights is we're saying that ByteDance doesn't have the right to invest in TikTok. You need to divest.
Okay. So private property is just as far as companies. Chinese companies get to operate in the U.S. because we give them private property rights.
But what I'm saying is now we don't give them private property rights anymore.
Yes. But that's that's what we were doing.
Yes, we were giving them total carte blanche to private property rights afforded to any American.
Sure.
We're no longer doing that anymore.
Yes.
So there's a retired professor at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce his name, but he said basically that no Chinese company or entity owned by one can say no when Beijing asks. Doing so jeopardizes an executive's personal and business assets, as well as the safety of the executive's family. You have great examples of this, right?
Yes. I don't remember
Was it Foxconn guy?
Foxconn, yes, Foxconn. But there was also a larger tech crackdown where lots of high-ranking executives of tech companies were disappeared for months on end. But I mean, the general idea here that's kind of clear to any outside observer is that the Chinese Communist Party is fascist. They're fascist leaders. And so the companies can only exist and operate if they act in accordance with the fascist government. That's how fascism works.
Yes. And so now the issue with foreign nations, the liberal West, can these nations, these democracies, actually distinguish between private companies based in China and the government of China itself? Is there any way to distinguish? But I want to get into one more thing here. It's not just that can nations distinguish the government from the companies, because we do business with a lot of government companies abroad. It's party controlled. That's the issue. Okay. It's the fact that it's ruled by an unaccountable, specifically ideological party.
Okay.
And it's not like us doing business with Deutsche Bank, right? Because that's technically a private corporation.
What about like buying oil from Saudi Arabia?
Right.
Is that okay though? Like that's still it's ruled by a single ideological force.
Well, yes, but the single ideological force isn't trying to subvert and destroy the United States.
Okay.
Where the Chinese role internationally is very clearly that.
Okay.
That's like right? Because if the tools become an apparatus to support and presume dominance of their state over another state,
sure,
then it becomes a problem to do business with that type of company.
Do you think there are lines drawn anywhere there? Like think about with Russian oil, we set a price cap, but we didn't say you can't buy it.
Right. Well, then that's a problem of pragmatism.
Exactly.
That's a problem of pragmatism. And right now we're in the lucky situation where we don't have to think about pragmatic issues with the current Chinese owning of TikTok or, all these other things.
Yes, but in this case, it's just more worth it to not deal with them.
Yes. Because of all this, Chinese investors are having trouble getting into important international new growing markets and the industries of the future. Startups that focus on international intelligence,
artificial intelligence.
What did I say?
You said international.
Artificial intelligence, semiconductors, and other cutting-edge technologies explicitly avoid Chinese investors or tell their existing Chinese investors to divest because these these startup companies don't want the US or other liberal democracies to crack down on them for national security reasons. So they don't want Chinese businessmen and billionaires to invest in their companies.
This happened with a big Saudi or Arabian company, which I'm going to try to find the name of, but I remember that it was taking money from China and the U.S. and the U.S. was like, you can't keep taking.
You can't do that.
Yeah, money from China.
I will say that this is starting to get borderline xenophobic and xenophobic.
Okay.
And not just for international security reasons. Here's one example. I believe it's getting kind of ridiculous. Chinese citizens are banned from purchasing homes in Florida. I do not have a problem with a Chinese citizen buying a house in Florida.
Me neither.
I don't have a problem with that. That's not an issue to national security. That just seems xenophobic and ridiculous.
Yes.
From my point of view. There are more than 36 states that are considering laws that would prohibit Chinese citizens and entities from buying or owning any property. Again, I don't think that makes any sense. I don't think barring Chinese citizens from buying property, I only view the problem of Chinese citizens buying property the same way I would view a German citizen buying property.
Yeah.
I don't view it as any different.
Again, I mean, like a company, it depends on what kind of property.
Right.
Right? There are some bits of evidence that say that foreign governments might have bought massive data centers or bought massive plots of land to build huge data centers there or crypto mining operations there near U.S. military operations.
Yes,
they could possibly sabotage them in the case of an invasion of Taiwan. And that, no, we shouldn't allow.
Right.
But as far as buying a house, yeah, you're chill.
Yeah, you're chill. I don't understand why we're blocking that.
No.
But this is all having massive consequences. Chinese investment into the United States is dropping, and it's dropping rapidly. Chinese new U.S. investment has dropped below $5 billion in 2022. And this is from $46 billion in 2016. So the amount of capital that's flooding from China into the U.S. is decreasing because the Chinese billionaires don't want to get their private property tackled from the U.S. government anymore, and they're no longer viewing it as a safe investment.
It's interesting because this must just be like not even physical property, but not financial assets, because I know that China is buying more than $5 billion worth of American bonds.
Yeah. And all of this is really, it comes down to my final question. Can the democratic nations defend themselves from Chinese Communist Party capitalism? And that's the way I like to describe it. I like to describe it as party capitalism. I think that's fairly similar to fascism.
Okay.
We're saying the same thing, but basically what at the end of the day is illiberal parties and illiberal ideologies are using the tools of liberalism to destroy liberalism.
Yes.
That's what's happening.
Yes.
And how can liberal nations fight back against
while staying liberal?
While staying liberal.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, do you think they can?
No. I think this is showing an inherent flaw in liberalism. But now what you have to do is you need to extend the rights of liberalism only to those who want to be liberals. That's what you have to do.
Yeah, you have to condition it.
You have to condition
it. Which will kind of reduce the ideological purity of your liberalism.
Yes.
But it will improve the national security situation of your country, at least.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for watching this episode of Out of Order. If you liked the video, consider becoming a patron on Patreon.
On Patreon, we release exclusive content every week. This week, we're going to be talking about the Supreme Court decision upholding the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. We're going to talk about how BMW got caught with their pants down using child labor. That didn't sound good. And then new updates in the UAW push to unionize the South.
And then for our deep dive this week, we're looking into the Baumol effect,